Hi everyone, welcome to episode 12 of our podcast series. I'm here as usual with friend and colleague Ricky Stoddart. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad. How are you?
Yep, I'm fine, mate. It's everyone else.
Yeah, you're a liar. You've got a newborn. You're not fine.
Yeah, constantly on the cusp of having a meltdown, mate. But yeah,
I've not noticed.
I'm
honestly.
here, so
yeah. Fair play to you.
There's never a dull moment, mate, is there, in this industry or this hobby?
Nope.
It's busy as always, whether we're doing magazine content or dealing with clients or any of the other 101 things.
Very busy fish farm, yeah,
to deal with. So it's good to get out of into the podcast studio, though, and make use of it. I know we've been getting some nice comments, and you know, a lot of people have been taking advantage of us in the car as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Just concentrate on the road, guys. I know we're pretty on the edge of your seat kind of stuff, but keep an eye on the road. We're going to chat about a couple of topics today. Two that are sort of quite prominent at the moment, seem to be sort of doing the rounds a little bit. Mm-hmm. People talking about subjects. So yeah, whilst it's topical, thought we might
let's go for it.
Might as well chuck our pennies worth in. So
see who we can piss off today.
Yeah, I mean, in one word, nitrate.
Oh yeah, glad you mentioned this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a bit of a bubble, really, up at Coil Sale, between here and there. That's where I spend most of my time, and at home with the family. That's it. I don't look at too much of what's going on out there. And I think you follow social media a lot more than I do, keeping your ear to the ground, and you're obviously fresh out of retail still, so to speak, compared to me. So yeah, I just, obviously my whole, it's the keep it simple mantra that I'm sort of banging. I live and die by it, really, and the results are out there for everyone to see as I keep posting and sharing. And yeah, nitrate's been one. All of a sudden, it seems to be every other question that I get coming through at the minute is, what about your nitrate? How do you control your nitrate? What's going on with it? I struggle to see where this is all coming from. There's sort of two. There's multi-pronged, really. I think it's not a parameter that, from my days when you're getting into fish keeping to begin with, you don't really learn. Nitrate is it's harmless.
Well, it's a bit more. It's far more forgiving, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was the talk back when I started was, it's harmless. Don't worry about it. It's never really going to kill your fish. That's the conversations I've had with people. It's not nitrite. It's not going to cause blood toxicity. It's not ammonia, it's not burning. Therefore, why really worry about it? And the angle that seems to be really coming to light here is around fish growth. And that's sort of, when you read some of the limited documents that are out there and researches, it can stunt fish growth. A lot of that research has been done more with tropical fish than koi. It's very limited, but all I hear it's saying, this is what comments like this drive meat potty, it can stunt fish growth. Well, can we, just expand on that a little bit more? When we're talking, when the fish reaches 90 centimetres, it slowly begins to slow down, or is it when it's 20 centimetres, 50? At what point is it going to slow down, and what is it going to stop? What centimetres is it actually going to take away and prevent the fish from gaining? Other link to, recently someone mentioned it around appetite of fish, that it's having an effect on appetite. But throughout all this, all I'm getting is, and I've openly said, it's not a parameter I check or test for. Off the back of a lot of these comments, I went and run it on my Heeltsaury pond, the Shinoda Heeltsauries, which possibly everyone's seen over on my Coil Sale channel. Absolutely growing at a rate of knots. It's the extreme of everything, that pond. Extreme stocking, feeding, absolutely everything. And they're absolutely rocketing and looking amazing. So tested the nitrate, and for sure it's absolutely through the roof. It was sort of 90 milligrams per litre on my test. On a Hannah test, on the meter, it was even higher. It went above the maximum range on the test. And yet I'm looking in the pond, and you've seen them yourself. There's nothing to say that those fish are struggling in any way, shape or form. And that's the bit that then gets me thinking, if you're at a point where you're worrying about nitrate, the only thing I'm seeing there is you are absolutely somebody who has ticked every other box in fish raising to be at a point where you're thinking nitrate's a problem. And by that, I mean you've got the best filtration capacity. You've got oxygen saturation. I mean, I can absolutely tell you, because of the price of the equipment, there's not many people out there testing for oxygen saturation properly, and that is massively important. So we're looking at, potential, have you got the right setup? Oxygen levels right? Are you actually feeding your fish properly? Have you got the best food that you can be feeding? Because that's going to make a world of difference. Are you actually putting the right amount of food into the pond? Got the right regime to push the maximum out of the fish? Or you're heating the water. So in the summer, have you got 24, 25 degrees? Because it's all right having a conversation about nitrate affecting fish growth. If you're using shit food and you're not heating your water, your growth's going to be poor anyway. So nitrate's not part of the conversation at that point. Then what else have we got? If we're worrying about appetite, we're looking at, again, oxygen levels, first of all, when it is warm. Are we looking at source water? That conversation we keep having that's going to come in here again at some point. Is there background traces of chlorine, chloramines, metals present? Metals, I've seen the first-hand effects of what metals do to appetite, and it's surreal.
It's alarming, isn't it?
Surreal to see how it changes the feeding behaviour. Which the example was this old guy's pond when I first met him. I'm not going into all the details, but the thing that alerted me to it being something beyond what I could physically see and test for was that all these big hungry fish at 24 degrees, were active. They were swirling around. They reacted to food going on the surface and came to it as if they were hungry, ate a little bit, and then lost interest completely. And I'm looking at that thinking, this isn't right. That doesn't check out. Just how I saw them around food wasn't normal behaviour for happy koi. And that was the point where I said, we've got to look deeper. And this pond had a massive issue with zinc going on. One of the real nasty metals to have
major inhibitor of food stimulus.
So we're thinking of all these things, let's say, are you turning over enough water, managing organics, so many things here on this big long list. Are you actually selecting the right fish to grow? If you've got certain size expectations, is the fish from a bloodline capable of it? Is the actual fish then from that bloodline got the right setup in its bone structure to actually grow and put size on effectively? If you actually draw that out as a list of things, of boxes to tick off before you actually get to the point of looking at nitrate, you've got to be on one serious level to think, right, now that's the focus to get the extra fraction, extra tiny percentage to take these fish to another level.
I think we could probably agree that there's marginal gains to be had.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
So do you think people, because it's a readily available test, do you think that's why people...
I think so, and it's staring people...
It's one that people are aware of.
If you're doing proactive water testing, you test ammonia, 0, you test nitrite, hopefully 0 or very, very low reading, then all of a sudden you test this nitrate and wow, it's gone pink, it's right there in your face and it's staring at you. Oxygen, like I've already said, the liquid tests are not really worth their money. You've got to buy meters. Meters are expensive. We're talking closer to £1,000 than anything else for one of them. And then they're not easy things to look after either, as I've found. Calibrating the things, keeping it fresh to get accurate readings, pain in the arse, in all honesty. So there's this huge list, in my opinion, you will want to be working through as a koi keeper before you get to the very end bracket of things where, if I reduce my nitrate down to a certain level, can I get an extra centimetre growth this year? And I really think that's what we're talking about here.
Perhaps marginal skin improvement.
So marginal. I will not give it the time of day.
I think obviously...
Just to reiterate the amount of people at that level, I'm not at that level.
Yeah.
I've still got so much more I can do to improve my systems and tweak more growth that I know of before I get to the point of even thinking, really, if I tackle this, am I going to get anything from it? I'm a long way off.
I think people are quite quick to grab onto the headline, and the headline I'm kind of been having is Ricky Stoddart says nitrate is good for your fish, and obviously that's not the case whatsoever. Obviously, we're fortunate enough we've got this opportunity to sort of voice opinions.
It's not going to kill them anytime soon.
It's something that obviously we have a one take when we do this. We cover vast topics, and perhaps we don't cover everything to its nth detail, but obviously it's something that probably a lot of people stress about far more than they need to, given the other list of priorities.
Yeah. Just say,
is that in a nutshell? Is that
all those other things? I mean, if you're not doing those things at the minute, get nitrate clean out your head, because I just cannot see. There's nothing yet that's demonstrated to me that it's a mass problem that needs dealing with. Just because some paper says or somewhere says it can affect fish growth, it's just generic information. I literally banged it into Google. I thought, what information's out there? You see, it's just the same stuff regurgitated and slightly worded around different things. Very generic, saying it can affect fish growth, it can do this, can do this. Well,
where are the specifics?
Yeah,
I think obviously we spoke about like how other fish species are far more sensitive to it.
Completely.
Oddly enough, carp are actually quite robust. You know, you certainly couldn't expose marine species or even seemingly hardy tropical fish to some of the parameters that carp or koi can withstand. And when I was talking the other day, back and forth with a customer that was messaging us, nice, just asking some questions, about one of our previous podcasts. And I mentioned that that there's a study that he was asking about fish growth, etc., and the bigger picture of it. And I said one of the main studies about alternative. I'm going off topic here a little bit, but just getting a point out here of the protein sources. Where's the evidence of what has an impact? The major study for that protein source derivatives is from tilapia, which has what relevance to carp. So again, what I'm going round houses a little bit, but what I'm getting at is it's koi specific research, which we're lacking.
Well, you're never going to fact. Let's face it, it's not really. It's not big so enough. You've not got heaps full of fish dying from nitrate. In fact, you've got no fish dying from nitrate. So
I think it could maybe compound ill fish.
I don't know, Chris. Well, we're clearly differing in opinion on that one. But
I think if we're talking marginal gains, I think we can't ignore that fact that it might have a compound effect with other issues.
As everything does.
Yeah.
You know where to point the finger, but there's not mass fish problems related from this. So even if somebody paid for do all the research into that, all they're going to see at the end of it is either they're going to come up with, or what, it's not easy stuff to remove anyway. So come up with a wonder product or identify there's a problem and then realise that, well, it don't really, it's an hard one to sell, so there's going to be no financial gain from doing all the research. Yeah. That's the problem that we face. But I think it's just important. My heritage, my everything in koi keeping is stooped from Japan. Spent most of my life being around koi in Japan, and for me, everything I've picked up and the bit I admire is the way in which they kept koi with such simplicity, through truly understanding the fish. Not everything else around it. Yeah, in some breeders they're lacking in that knowledge, and they could make serious gains in what they're doing by understanding a bit more. But let's face it, for decades now they've produced the best fish in the world just through sheer knowledge and experience, really.
Yeah,
it's passed down, and that's to me what's important with koi keeping. When I see that simplicity done, it increases the level of enjoyment. And when you're obsessing over something, which if we are talking about fish related, this is what I'm getting at. So if you're all of a sudden you've got an unheated pond, you're feeding a mediocre food, yet you read something online that goes, nitrate can affect fish growth, and you're looking at your fish thinking, God, I wish they'd grow more. getting the nitrate to 0 is not going to change your fish growth in that environment. That's what I'm important. It's everything we say on these podcasts, you can take it out of context quite easily. You know, like you've already just said it there. You know, Ricky Stoddart says nitrate, not a problem, who cares, type thing. Well, the context of it is there's a much bigger picture to it all, as with everything. You know, when we talk about heavy metals, there's a recommended fish safe values for heavy metals in singular form. If there's only one heavy metal in there, you know, that's the fish safe value. The minute there's more than one, there are no values for it. Nobody actually knows what the effects are. And yeah, we were talking about nitrate in relation to fish growth. It's one of those, yes, is it a tiny margin? It's a debate to be had because there's no real hard evidence, and very few people actually at the point, in my opinion, where that's the last thing on the list that they need to be looking at, because there's all that stuff to be done prior. You know, even if you are heating, if you're only heating in summer, but let's say you heat at 20 degrees, you know, and you're ambiently holding 17, 18, you only eat that 20, 21, something like that, or even up to 22. Those fish behave and eat. The feeding behaviour is so different compared with 24 or 25. Massively different. And then if you start tipping over that, go 27, 28, feeding behaviour changes again because of oxygen saturation, oxygen management. So they're the big things here we need to be looking at and getting, let's say, all of that truly perfected, knowing that your source water is perfected, the right maintenance regime, every single other thing is there. So if you're not there, do not let anybody steer you in the direction of thinking that is the root of any problems you've got going in your pond. I'd be looking at everything else first. If you are at a point where you're truly thinking, I am bossing this, there's not much more I can do, feel free to have a play around with it. See if there are some marginal gains from it. Like I say, I'm not there yet. So maybe when I do feel like I'm at that point, it's something I'll look at and explore and see if I can truly make any difference. But as it stands, I see no real need to.
It's good discussion.
That's my opinion. I'm not a scientific koi keeper. That side does nothing for me. But what I am doing is raising fish exceptionally well.
Yeah,
I'm sure to a standard many people would like to do. You know, unless there's sort of non-tangible things to all this as well. You know, you're talking about raising fish, and literally they're just focusing on growth, length, size, weight, body volume, whatever it is. What about the skin? You know, that's the bit that, you know, there's no measurement for that other than your own eyes. You know, so you've got all them elements to consider. So yeah, you might be there, you know, getting size on fish, and then thinking, I want to need more size, but your fish actually look like shit.
Yeah, how do you?
Because you're not focusing on then conditioning the pigment or developing the pigment as well. There's just so many layers and so many things to consider before getting to this topic, which I just think people need to be doing so much more and focusing on so many other things before that word even comes into the conversation.
Yeah, I think you put that quite well, to be fair, as well, mate.
And then the downsides to it, I see, is yes. So what are the known, you know, issue if it stands? If you're truly adamant that it's a problem and you need to work on it, what are the solutions for nitrate? The big one people look to is water changing. We've covered water so many times now. You know, we're at a point where we really are working hard to get more and more info and facts out there. But unless you know your source water, some source water can be richer in nitrate than it actually is in the pond environment.
More than most people would probably give credit for.
Which we've got to watch. But not only that, you know, you then go down a route of wanting to flood water through your system to reduce your nitrate. If that water you're flooding through your system is not really properly treated for not just chlorine, chloramines, you know, it's also free from any heavy metals and things like that, you're then adding a problem into your water there that you're reducing nitrate but creating problems in another area which are going to have massively adverse effects on your fish.
And here comes another headline, you know, Ricky Stoddart doesn't advocate water changes. Again, it's never something that's been said. It's just obviously the overuse of poor source water. I don't know many people that have gone into the finite detail of some of the test results that we've got here, and we're gonna delve into this at another point when we have more data and research behind it. But it's shocking. So and these are after going through expensive dechlor units with heavy metal substrate removal.
Yeah, it's
particulate
crazy.
In them.
I don't think people actually truly understand how purifiers work either, and it's to nobody's fault. there's just no information out there. I've spoke about her on my Q&A live for Koi also, Anne Telford was the woman here that really, we've clearly gone on a change of topic here, but the water stuff, she was the real person that invested heavily in this area, getting purifiers that delivered and did the job. And, I'm talking doing the job, treating water that actually had a metals problem. I referred to the guy I mentioned earlier with the zinc issue. From what I can remember, the 3-pod purifier system for his pond was about £700, I think, to buy at that point. And the cartridges were on a serious quota as well. No over-egging things to make them look good value for money.
Yeah.
There was no way that guy could have run a trickle unless he was a very, very wealthy man, because I think the cartridges were about $250 a set to replace. It might have been about £300.
Yeah, I mean, this
serious stuff.
The catalytic carbon these days is not it's not horrendous, but certainly I think the key to it is at what point does it expire?
Yeah,
which obviously, if you're judging it purely by testing your ammonia, nitrate, what impact?
And heavy metals testing is hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's got to be laboratory level.
Yeah.
Because the issue is contamination can be a big thing in getting inaccurate results. So you've got that element. The equipment actually doing the testing needs to be maintained and looked after to a really high standard to avoid contamination in the results as well. So we're talking a process. I've found some kits online, which we'll post a link in the description for anybody who wants it, but the full-on test is £130, and you send some water away, and that is screened for absolutely everything, but it's £130. What you're going to do? You're going to do that every month, make sure your purifier is working, or every couple of months. It's hard to know, so just in case that's been taken in the wrong way when I'm talking about fresh water, yes, ponds need fresh water, but what you need is a rigorous maintenance regime. And the fresh water, obviously, I use fresh water all the time, but I use what is needed to replenish what's lost through maintenance, and that's it, no more. You're not just seeing me dropping 30% out of the pond and filling it back up, never going to happen, and you're not seeing me trickling either. Like the only time I would consider doing everything if there's seriously heavy pollution.
You need to dilute. Yeah,
there's other ways of dealing with that. Potassium permanganate, great treatment for oxidizing crap out of the water. There's just many, many ways of skinning a cat, so to speak. And for me, say until we truly know, or there's something in place where people can truly know the full extent of the mains water that they're using, keep it to a minimum. Yes, you need for it, but just top up, through evaporation if needed, and after your maintenance. If you've got a drum filter, that's one big plus I do see to drum filters. Just naturally, through their own actions of monitoring water level, the heavier the waste load in the pond, the more a drum will clean, and the more water it'll lose. So you'll top up, which is a nice way of gauging it, because it's literally just taking out. The maintenance is based on the amount of shit, hence the fresh water going in, but it's not big amounts, and it's not frequently all the time either. It's just going in when it's needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not really tied to any company. This is all pretty impartial stuff. We don't get any kickback from anyone. This is all just based on experience, obviously managing vast quantities of fish on a commercial scale. So if we can advise and give tips and bits of information that will make your life easier at home, it is a little bit frustrating to get shot down for it, but I mean, I guess if your face doesn't fit, then it's the way of the world, isn't it?
Everyone's got an opinion on this stuff. As any advice I give or opinions I give, I know what's standing behind me to back it up. Over 20 years of experience already, more time spent in Japan than most people can think of. And just the sheer amount of fish that's sat behind me and delivering the results, seeing it. It's not like I'm preaching about some methods that I've just read online. This is actually the stuff I'm practicing, trying to dissect it down for people, showing what I'm actually doing in order to get the results that I'm getting. And in the meantime, making sure it's put across in a way that seems accessible and showing people how accessible it is to actually get these results. Because I don't like the feeling that people do get shot down and feel inferior and shitty because they've not got a drum filter, or because they're not buying £2,000-3,000 koi every time they're making a new purchase, or because they've not got the latest this, the latest that, a flow frame pump, whatever it is, because it can all be done without it. It's more important is getting the right technique, the right knowledge, and then going about it and making incremental changes and getting them incremental gains every year. It's not an overnight process. I mean, in 20 odd years I've been doing this, I look back to them early years and I should have been arrested for fish murder. It was horrendous, you know, but that's all the learning. That's where all the knowledge has come from. True experience. No textbooks involved. You know, reading's not my thing. It's just literally passed down that the time I spent in Japan was invaluable. You know, not just the time from visits. Actually, when I went there for work experience over 3 summers, insane. And like I say, when you see it done like that, I often had the feeling that when I've been in Japan, it feels right. It feels natural. It feels like a fit. Like this is how koi keeping should be.
Yeah.
And then got back over here to the shop at the time, and then you get involved in certain circles, and your head's in there, and you see it, and you just think, and on forums as it was, just think this is not how koi keeping is meant to be. This is just all wrong. And that's for me what I've watched these people, seen what they do, and just with such simplicity, by being able to understand from looking and knowing what's going off and dealing with it with such simplicity. So it really can be done like that. I'm not saying to beginners, that's again, I don't want my comments to be misconstrued when you're just starting out, you know, there's a period, but the best way is to get stuck in and learn the hard way, to be honest with you.
So there you have it. Yeah, it's a pretty damning verdict, really. I think it's based on experience. If anyone else wants to challenge anything or ask any questions, then in the comments section.
Yeah, like I say, it's opinions in it. This is what this whole game is really, because the true knowledge is hard to get access to. But yeah, it's let people do as they wish with it. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, interesting subject, mate. Okay, yeah, I think we covered everything in quite a bit of depth there, Ricky. So yeah, thanks for your thoughts as always, and I hope you've enjoyed this edition. Be sure to catch us on the next episode next week. Thanks very much.